This is incredibly hard to talk about, even on Reddit. But I'm at my wit's end. Nothing I can think of will fix this, and I'm desperate for solutions. Basically, my little sister was left partially paralyzed after a horrible accident that was partially my fault. I'm still working through it in therapy and accepting that I was a victim in those circumstances too, because of our parents leaving us alone for days at a time. But nothing will change the facts that if it wasn't for me, she wouldn't be disabled. And she has to live with the consequences, and I don't. After that accident, she, me, and all our siblings were removed from our home and split up in different foster homes because there wasn't anyone who could take all of us. My older brother and I went to an amazing foster mom. She adopted us when I turned 18. Our other siblings went to different foster homes. Some were good and some weren't, but now our parents have most of them back. My disabled sister went to a care home when she got out of the hospital. Our birth parents still don't have custody of her because they have to make some changes to their house before it's suitable for her. And they haven't done that yet. My sister's care home is close to where my brother and I live with our adoptive mom, who is 68 years old. So I used to visit her as much as I could, which actually wasn't that often because during the pandemic there were strict rules about who could visit and when. But my classes were also online, and I didn't have a job other than helping out my mom with her business, which didn't have much business during lockdown. So I would be there literally as often as I could, and so would my older brother. But now I don't have any online classes, and I have a job that I have to be at 5 a.m. every day. And I also want to have a social life. I'm making friends. I want to join clubs and go to parties and go out with guys and stuff. But my sister is so upset that I don't have time to see her every day anymore. The first time I canceled on her because my friend asked me to a party, she was so sad. That's why I felt so bad about it. She wasn't mad, she was just sad and asked to know all about the party and see all the pictures and stuff. So I didn't cancel on her again for months and months after that. But now it's like, there are things I want to do. I want to take the creative writing class that goes until 9 p.m. I want to audition for the play. I want to actually have a life. This probably sounds horrible, but I'm sick of feeling constant guilt and having to pay for what happened to my sister for the rest of my life. But that's not fair. Because no matter what I do, she has to pay for it for the rest of her life. So why shouldn't I have to pay for it? My therapist says it's okay to want to do other things, and spoke to me about how to break the news to my sister that I wouldn't be seeing her every day. So I did, but my sister was so upset and angry, and she has every right to be. She was like, okay, fine, you can go out and have a life, and I never will. I just feel so stuck because she depends on me for literally every bit of happiness she can feel in life. And I feel like I owe her. No matter how much my therapist tries to convince me I deserve to have my own life, I feel like I'm responsible for her. My therapist says it's actually my biological parents who owe my sister. They should be the ones making the long drive to see her every day. They should be getting their house fixed so she can go home. They should be the ones making up for what happened. But the fact is, they aren't, and they haven't, and my sister is suffering. And if I can mitigate that even a little, shouldn't I? I can't confide in my older brother, who is 20 years old, about how bad I feel about this because I know he blames himself even more than I blame myself. He was trying to drive our parents' car when they weren't home. He was only 14, but had been driving illegally for a while, but he wasn't used to driving on the ice and hit her. The reason I blame myself is because I'm the one who talked him into trying to drive into town that day, and his mental health is even worse. He's also seeing her as much as he can, and I don't want him to feel more pressure to see her even more. He doesn't drive for obvious reasons. He will take a 2-hour walk to see her sometimes, if no one can drive him to see her. For his sake, I'm trying to act like therapy is totally working, and I definitely don't blame myself for what happened at all, because I know he'd just spiral if he knew how I actually felt. Also, this is just the biggest of all the things that are driving me crazy right now. I am desperately worried about how my other siblings are doing back with our biological parents. I got in several angry blowout arguments with my birth parents during the time we were in foster care, and now they basically think of me as dead to them. Social workers are basically forcing them to let me see my siblings once a month, but now the little ones act scared of me and my older brother. I don't even know what they are saying about me to make my siblings hate me, but other than this guilt about my disabled sister, it is the worst feeling in the entire world that I guess I'm just going to have to live with for the rest of my life, because the social workers aren't doing anything about it. It's not like they can do anything anyway. They're not going to remove my siblings again over something like that, and it's not like I want them to. If they could all have good foster parents, like my adoptive mom was, that would be great. But some of them were more neglected by their foster parents than they were by my biological parents. And I want what's best for them, I guess, even if it means my parents brainwash them and they end up hating me. But they deserve better than to be raised by my crazy parents who will brainwash, neglect, and parentify them. I've talked to my adoptive mom about it a bunch, and her advice is that I need to learn to accept the things I can't change, and so does my sister, but that's honestly not helpful. I don't even know what I'm going on about anymore. I just feel like I'm going to explode, and I feel so helpless. I don't know how to help my sister, or my other brother, or my other siblings, and nothing I do is enough. To add, thanks for all the comments. I posted here because I wanted to audition for the school play, but I normally would see my sister at this time. I ended up just crying, doing neither, and taking a nap that I really needed. I appreciate that the comments are understanding. Some of them actually made me feel a little better. Although the general trend for my life is that I'm sad, and someone says something to help me see things in a new way, and I feel better, but then I start to feel sad again anyway. To clarify some things, I'm not actually allowed to take my sister anywhere. My sister is technically only paralyzed from the waist down, but moving her upper body too much and sitting up are painful for her. Stuff like riding in a car is apparently really painful. She is in therapy, but she says it doesn't help. She watches television, uses the internet, listens to audiobooks, or sometimes reads books, and she does her high school classes online. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Sounds like your parents are responsible, and you were a child who physically could not think like an adult, left in an adult role you should never have been in. It isn't unreasonable to not visit your sister daily. Not visiting her daily doesn't mean she is less of a priority to you. Life just doesn't function like that. I obviously don't know how her limitations affect how you two can communicate versus the norm of video chat, phone call, etc. But short of living with someone, you don't see people, even family, every day. You also aren't responsible for her every bit of happiness. It is not healthy for either of you to hold that view or attitude. Your adopted mom's advice is actually helpful because you both need to move on from this and create a life for yourselves as independent people with different needs. Do not stay stuck on what your parents failed you on, or you are going to be 30, 40, 50, 60, and have not done anything with your life to find your patch of happiness. And that is a long time to be stuck and miserable. Right now, your responsibilities to your sister are to keep in touch, be a friend, not a parent, and make sure she is getting the care she is supposed to be getting. Beyond that, your job should be building your adult life. Sure, you can have goals to help your siblings out and even eventually have a space where you live with them, but that isn't going to happen if you aren't taking care of yourself first. A drowning person cannot save a drowning person. Comment 2. Your sister is a 15-year-old girl and in the foster system, correct? If yes, she or someone on her behalf needs to ask the judge for a court-appointed special advocate. A court-appointed special advocate is different than a social worker and can help improve her quality of life significantly. If you have any questions, feel free to direct message me, and I would be happy to help answer some questions. Also, you said this happened when your older brother was 14. Oh my goodness, you poor children. You were all babies. What an awful, horrible situation to be put in. None of this is your fault, none. Your brains were literally not developed enough to comprehend the possibility of what actually happened. You are still so young. As someone who has worked extensively with neglected teens, please take my word for this. You were in survival mode. You were not in any position to think of all the possible ways it could have ended badly. This is like blaming a person for drowning when they try to swim for help. I am so sorry your sister is suffering so greatly, but you cannot fix this for her. As another commenter stated, nothing will ever be enough. Now for the update. A month has passed since I last updated about my sister. I haven't visited her at the care home in 2 weeks now. Work has been crazy. Like I leave before the sun comes up, and by the time I get off, it's already dark. She sent me this text asking why I haven't been around, and I felt so guilty. I know I shouldn't, but I can't help it. I planned to visit her after work on a Friday, but I got stuck in traffic and ended up being late. When I finally got to the care home, she was in a really bad mood and refused to talk to me. She accused me of abandoning her and wanting to forget about her. I tried explaining my work schedule, but she cut me off and said it was just excuses. I know she didn't mean it, but it still hurt. She started talking about our childhood, reminding me of happier times before the accident. She just kept going on, and I didn't know what to say. I just sat there and listened. My adoptive mom invited me to a family dinner at our house the following weekend. I didn't want to go because I didn't want to think about my sister, but I knew it would make my mom happy. So I said yes, thinking it might be a good distraction. During the dinner, when I walked in, my older brother Jake announced that he and Rachel had decided to name their unborn child after me. I felt so happy and overwhelmed. I never thought I would get to have a namesake, especially since I'm not even really part of the family. My younger siblings were there too, and I noticed them looking at their phones a lot. After the dinner, I learned that they were in touch with our biological parents all the time. They even mentioned wanting to visit the care home. This led to a really tense discussion about my sister's condition. I tried to change the subject because I didn't want to talk about it, but my younger siblings insisted on knowing why she was still in the care home. This made me feel so overwhelmed. I just excused myself to the kitchen to get away from the conversation. While I was in the kitchen, I overheard Jake talking to my adoptive mom about my sister's situation. He was really frustrated about the lack of progress with our biological parents and how they've been neglecting her. I walked back to the table just as my dad brought up a family trip they were planning for the summer. It was so weird to hear everyone excited about it while my sister was stuck in a care home. After dinner, I texted my sister, trying to maintain a connection and keep her updated. I just didn't want her to feel abandoned. But she responded with so much anger. She said she didn't want pity texts and wanted real visits instead. I felt so defeated. A few days later, my adoptive mom told me that our biological parents were planning to visit the care home. She was really worried about what would happen. On the day of the visit, I got a text from my sister saying she was really nervous about it. I decided to go to the care home to support her, even though I had said I would take a break. When I got there, I saw our biological parents walking into the building, and it made me feel so uneasy. My sister was in her room, visibly upset, and I tried to comfort her before her parents arrived. As soon as they walked in, they started arguing with the staff about the care she was receiving. She overheard the argument and got even more upset, feeling like she was being fought over. I didn't want to get involved at first, but I couldn't just stand there and listen to them fight over her. So I confronted them and demanded that they treat her with respect. They just dismissed me and said they knew what was best for her. My sister heard me yelling at them, and she said she didn't want to go back home with them. They insisted that they were making progress and would be taking her home soon. Things are still complicated. My sister and I are still struggling to connect, and I feel like I've lost her trust. The visit from our biological parents was beyond stressful, and I can't shake the feeling that my sister might be taken away from us. The idea of her living with them is just so scary, and I know it would completely change everything for both of us. I can't help but feel like I'm losing her again. I'll make sure to post an update if anything big happens. Edit: my sister's biological parents decided not to take her home. They realize they're not ready for the commitment. She was relieved. Am I the idiot for lying to my boyfriend about my sister's baby and now facing the fallout? We have been together almost 15 months. My relationship started with a pretty big lie, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. I dealt with years of infertility and never thought I would become a mother. I am in my 30s. My sister is also in her 30s and is gay. She was sexually attacked and became pregnant. When she discovered she was pregnant, she was already in her second trimester and did not want to terminate the pregnancy. We were abused as children, and there's a lot of abuse in our family. My sister did not want to explain what had happened. Our family is spread out and not in the same area. Long story short, we told everyone the child was mine. Fast forward, I met someone, and it's the best relationship I've ever been in. I assumed I would never find love. I'm not conventionally attractive, I'm not smart, and I'm not wealthy. I've met a genuinely great guy who comes from a really nice family. I'm pretty sure he is going to propose. He thinks I gave birth to my child. I told him that I can't conceive naturally and that I had to use donor sperm. I feel badly for keeping this from him. My own mother thinks that I gave birth to this child. I'm not sure how to handle this. Do I tell him now or do I wait until we're married? To add, thanks everyone for your feedback and advice. I'm going to tell him soon. I just need to figure out when and how. I'm going to take someone's suggestion and write everything in a letter and take that with me to collect my thoughts. I'll be back when there is something to share. Responding to everyone and talking about my sister's trauma has brought on some anxiety. It took a lot for me to post because I am afraid of saying too much and doxing myself. To clear up a few things, I had a partner in my late 20s and we tried to have a child. I'm not sure where the idea came from that I just went through fertility treatments without trying. I was put on Clomid and I had a procedure done where they put dye through my tubes to check for blockage because of an illness I had when I was young. I was then told my best bet was in vitro fertilization. Regarding the birth certificate, my sister was put on the very first one, but that basically doesn't exist because it's sealed. I was issued one a few months after the baby's birth. My name is the only one on the child's official birth certificate. The baby was born early and spent a few weeks in the neonatal intensive care unit because she had the baby unexpectedly due to high blood pressure and fluid in the lungs. We didn't have all of our paperwork finished. My sister was living with me, so the baby was able to come home with us. The hospital said if she hadn't been living with me, they wouldn't have released the baby to me. I got a lawyer, and the court gave us a guardian ad litem. A home study was done, and the guardian ad litem drilled us. We were honest about why the original birth certificate didn't have the father's name written down. The court ran an ad in the newspaper for several weeks. When no father stepped up to contest the adoption, it was allowed to proceed. I think I've answered everyone else's questions. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Of course, you need to tell him now. Talk to your sister and see what she feels comfortable with. You can always explain the situation and say, a family member's child without betraying the secret. Also, you haven't mentioned your plans with your child, but they do need to know they are not biologically yours before they find out some other way as a young adult and then cut you off forever for lying. And if you are honest with your child, you need to be honest with your partner. Comment 2. You should definitely continue lying to your fiancé until you are legally bound together, and then tell him you have been lying to him your entire relationship. I'm sure that will go over really well. What could possibly go wrong? Not sure how this is even a question. It's not like the child not being biologically yours is a big deal. The lying would be the issue. Edit. Oops, typo. Now, for the update. Just over a month has passed since I last updated, and let me tell you, it's been crazy. I finally got enough nerve to tell my boyfriend the truth about my sister's baby. I was a total mess, but it had to be done. I chose a quiet evening at home after dinner to break the news to him. The atmosphere was actually pretty relaxed, you know? We were watching a movie together, just chilling out. So I thought this would be a good time to talk. I started off by explaining the circumstances surrounding the baby's birth. I mentioned my sister's attack and the decision we made to tell everyone the child was hers. He looked confused and asked for clarification on a bunch of details. I had to explain the whole thing about using donor sperm due to my infertility. That's when his expression changed. He seemed to struggle with the information, trying to process what I was saying. It was a lot. He asked me why I felt the need to hide it for so long. I told him about my family's history and how judgmental everyone can be. I just didn't want to get any more crap from them. The conversation was getting intense, so we decided to pause the movie, which I think he was actually relieved about. He said he felt misled about our future together. We spent hours talking about what this all meant for us. He said he needed time to process the information. The next day, he suggested we take a break to think things over. That was a week ago, and we hadn't communicated much since then. Then yesterday, I got a text from him asking to meet in person. We chose a local diner because it's a place we often went to together. When I saw him, he seemed so distant and preoccupied. He expressed feeling a mix of confusion and frustration. I listened as he shared his thoughts about our relationship and where it stood. He mentioned feeling uncertain about starting a family with me. I explained that I was still committed to our future, despite the curveball my sister threw us. We even discussed the possibility of navigating this situation together if we both wanted to. Just when it seemed like we were getting somewhere, my sister called me out of nowhere. She revealed she was experiencing some complications with her pregnancy. My boyfriend overheard the conversation and immediately grew concerned. We both rushed to the hospital where my sister was being monitored. At the hospital, emotions were running high as we waited for updates. The doctor came out and said that my sister would need to stay for observation. We spent the night in the waiting area, and the tension was still lingering between us. Finally, my boyfriend spoke up about how things were going between us. He acknowledged the complexity of the situation with my sister's health and how it affected us. We agreed to take things one step at a time regarding her health and our relationship. Edit. Many people asked why my boyfriend and I didn't talk this through over the phone. I felt it was a conversation that needed to happen in person. I also needed to see his reactions firsthand. It was quite an emotional discussion. As for why my sister called me during our conversation, we had recently set up a group chat to keep in touch about her doctor's appointments. My boyfriend knew my sister was pregnant, but didn't know the details. Am I the idiot for calling the cops on my boyfriend's proposal and ruining everything? We have been together for 7 years. We moved in together after 2 weeks, adopted a dog and a couple of cats, opened a joint bank account, met each other's families, and merged our friends into one tribe. It has been 7 really good years. I'm happy. I am not one of those people who needs to be married. I don't need a ring, a ceremony, or a piece of paper to commit my life to the one person I love beyond all others. I am his wholly and completely. That isn't to say I'm against marriage, because I'm not, but getting a ring on my finger is not a priority for me. When I have thought about it, I imagine a small wedding with our parents, maybe our siblings, and the officiant. Barefoot on the beach. No fuss, nothing elaborate, something simple that we could throw together ourselves. Then off to a place where we could relax, eat, and drink without the formalities. If I had a dream wedding, it would be that or something similar. Back in July, my boyfriend was acting cagey. I knew he was up to something and trying to hide it. He is no good at trying to keep something under wraps. He's one of those people who, even though they don't say anything, act like they have a secret. I wasn't worried about his secret because I knew he would tell me eventually. I thought he was going to surprise me with a weekend getaway because I had been working long hours for a couple of months, and that's the kind of thing he does. One night, I arrived home from work, and his car wasn't in the driveway, the house was dark, and the front door was wide open. I sat in the street watching the house for a couple of minutes. There was no movement, no lights in the windows, nothing. I called my boyfriend 4 times, no answer. That wasn't like him. 1 missed call, sure. 4 missed calls, no. So I called the police. I was still on the phone with emergency services when they arrived. They came over to me. I gave them a rundown on what I knew, which was nothing. and they went into the house. A few minutes later, one of them came out and asked me to go in with them. They led me through the house to the back patio. I had flipped the lights on as I entered and saw that a trail of rose petals took us right out the back, where my boyfriend, wearing a tuxedo and handcuffs, was sitting at our patio table that was set beautifully for dinner. It goes without saying that the surprise proposal was ruined. Now for an update. It has been about 7 weeks since. Things are not good between us. It was a simple misunderstanding on my part. My boyfriend thinks I called the police because I knew he was going to propose. He thinks that I don't want to marry him, but instead of saying that, I found a way to make sure I wouldn't have to wait. We have discussed us getting married exactly once, and that was in our first year of being together. I remember the conversation word for word because it was only a handful of words. Him, would you wear my ring? Yeah. When? Surprise me. That was the extent of our discussion about marriage. I don't know how I was supposed to know he was going to ask 5 weeks ago from a half-hearted conversation from some 6 years ago. I know I hurt him, and I've apologized for doing so. He refuses to see how it came about that I called the police. He went to his parents that night because he was upset, then came home an hour later because they thought it was hilarious. Everyone he tells thinks it's funny. He is the one telling people. Before this post, I had not said anything to anyone because I know it upsets him. I don't know what else to do. He doesn't believe me that it was a huge misunderstanding. Am I missing something? Did I break trust or harm him in some way that I'm just not getting? How do I approach this so I can fix it? At this point, I'm thinking of proposing to him so we can move on from this. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Honestly, just wait until you get more responses to this post and send him the link. Leaving the door open and the lights off was incredibly stupid. I'm a grown man and I would have called the police too. What he did was idiotic and now he is pouting about it. OP's soon-to-be fiancé, if you read my post, stop being a baby. You had good intentions, but you screwed up the execution. It happens. This woman desperately wants to be with you. Stop messing up a good thing, pull your head out of your business, and propose. No big to-dos, no drones taking 360 videos. Take her somewhere special to the both of you. Get down on one knee, tell her how much you love her, and put the ring on her finger already. Comment 2. Not gonna lie, I was kind of prepared to read something silly. But what the heck? Have you tried reversing the example? What if you came home, it was dark out, the front door was wide open with seemingly nobody at home, and you couldn't get a hold of me? Wouldn't you be worried there was a home invasion? That is what I thought happened. The fact that he's so upset about this or blaming you is very weird. Now for the update. A few weeks have passed since the disastrous proposal. My boyfriend is still upset, thinking I ruined his proposal on purpose. Conversations are awkward and silent. I'm not perfect, but I'm not a monster. One of us needed to stop the pain. I decided to invite him over for dinner, hoping to ease the strain. It was a long shot, but at that point, I was desperate. I made his favorite meal, chicken parmesan, hoping it would lighten the mood. I figured, if we could laugh and remember good times over a meal, maybe we could start over a bit. During dinner, my boyfriend brought up the proposal again, clearly frustrated. He accused me of not taking our relationship seriously, comparing me to his ex-girlfriend. That was harsh. I tried to explain my side, but he dismissed my concerns, rolling his eyes like a child. I thought we were past this, but here we were again, stuck in the same cycle of hurt. The argument got worse, and he stormed out of the apartment, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a half-eaten plate of chicken parmesan. The next day, I got a text from my boyfriend saying he needed space. I was heartbroken. A week later, I went to my parents' anniversary party, hoping to distract myself. At the party, my boyfriend showed up unexpectedly, clearly not over the argument. He acted cold and distant, causing tension among family members. My younger sister, Kate, noticed something was off and asked me about it. I brushed off the question, not wanting to draw attention. During a toast, my dad jokingly mentioned how he couldn't wait for grandkids. My boyfriend visibly tensed, and I felt embarrassed. After the toast, he pulled me aside, expressing his anger over the comment. He stormed away again, leaving me feeling frustrated and confused. I decided to take a walk outside to clear my head. While outside, I overheard my boyfriend talking to my brother, Jake. I hid behind a bush, curious about what he was saying. He shared how he was considering breaking up with me, feeling betrayed. I confronted him as he returned, demanding to know what he said. He denied anything negative, but wouldn't look me in the eye. The confrontation turned heated, and we ended up arguing loudly. Family members began to notice, creating an uncomfortable scene. In a fit of rage, I revealed I overheard him talking about breaking up. He looked shocked, realizing I knew more than he thought. The argument spilled into the house, and guests stared awkwardly. I was done. I told him I wouldn't be treated like this any longer. I pulled out my phone, showing him a message I got from a mutual friend. The message revealed he'd been talking negatively about me behind my back. He was taken aback, realizing the extent of his actions caught up to him. I walked away from him and the party, leaving him stunned. I headed home and began packing his things, ready to end the relationship for good. The next day, I delivered his stuff to his parents' house directly. I left his stuff on the porch with a note saying our relationship was over. Edit. After I left his things on the porch, my boyfriend called me, begging to talk. I refused, but he showed up at my work, creating a scene. Eventually, I agreed to meet him. He apologized for his actions and admitted he broke up with me in the moment. We decided to take a break instead of ending things entirely. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.